I want to welcome every single one of you. Special welcome to Shayna Smith and Julia Wild, who are two amazing organizing interns at CHEJ, who've been putting up with my craziness as of late. Want to welcome old friends and new folks to this training call. I hope to have a really rich conversation with everyone. I want to certainly acknowledge the fact that we have different levels of experience on the call, different organizing backgrounds, but I do think that if we look for similarities, we'll be able to take something from the session. And my hope is that this is a conversation starter, not a standalone training that we give for an hour and then everybody goes back and disappears. So my contact information is widely available. I'm going to drop my email in the chat for if anybody would like to follow up offline about any of this. And so I just want to get started by saying, number one, we are all in going through our first pandemics, as far as I know. Okay, so nobody here is an expert on how to organize people during a quarantine. So being that this is new to everyone, it's okay that we're struggling a little bit, that you're having difficulties because the old way of doing things doesn't quite apply anymore because we just simply can't physically organize meetings the way we used to, do the outreach in the way we used to. And when we first started quarantining, I have to tell you that I was really taken aback and concerned about how we're going to build power at the grassroots level. If we couldn't be together physically, if we couldn't be knocking on people's doors and sitting down in their living rooms and making coffee together and getting to know one another by having these one-on-one conversations the way that we used to, then it dawned on me that, organizing has always, while it's shifted with the times, some of the principles are always the same, right? That we are creative beings, that we have to adapt to new situations and then really take opportunities as they come. Things are different. It's not better. It's not worse. It just is what it is, and there's nothing we can do about it. So a few months ago, I know that a lot of you we wouldn't necessarily be having this conversation over Zoom, right? People would be on a freeconferencecall.com thing at best, and not quite knowing how to mute ourselves or how to set up fancy video backgrounds and all that stuff. So we all adapt. And I really feel like the movement is calling upon all of us to stretch and get uncomfortable and learn some new things. But I will tell you that, if you're feeling a little insecure about this, having to learn new tools and figuring out new platforms, everyone is feeling that same exact way. Every last person. And the thing that I want to highlight throughout this conversation today is that the principles of organizing are the same. They always have been the same. They probably will remain the same. That we are here to listen, that we listen 80% of the time, we talk 20% of the time, that we ask leading questions and open-ended questions and let people come to their conclusions on their own, because people are smart enough, they are tough enough, they're courageous enough to do incredible things given the opportunity. And so to pause there for a second, there's gonna be two main parts of our conversation today. One of them is going to be on message, just, you know, how to draft scripts and that kind of thing. And then the other part is going to be a little more tech oriented. Okay, so I'll go slow, but if you have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat while I'm talking, and we'll be so as you think about it, and then we'll pause throughout the hour and take some of your questions. So the first thing is, why are we reaching out to people at all? Like, why is outreach so important in organizing? If we could win the kinds of campaigns that we're taking on by just, you know, showing up at the hearings and speaking one-on-one with our elected officials, if we could win by just being alone and right, we would have already won, right? If we could win by just doing the lone wolf campaign technique that I see a lot of people employ, and you know who you are, we would have already won. Now, the thing that moves politicians or companies are, in my estimation, and I'll be a little reductive here, it's either money or people. And people takes the form of votes, takes the form of consumers, but it's really either money or it's people. And in my short experience, I haven't worked with that many billionaires. I don't know how many billionaires are on the call today. And it's okay if you don't want to identify yourself. But short of that, we're really left with the people option, right? We can, so we can mobilize people to meetings. We can mobilize people to demonstrations. We can mobilize people to sign petitions. And our ability to mobilize a large enough number of people is going to create the leverage that we need to get our targets, either the politicians or the companies that are polluting, to change their behavior. In other words, I'm gonna pick on Lou just because I'm looking at you right now. I want the University of Chapel Hill, University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, to shut down this coal power plant that they run on campus. And by the way, this is a true story. University of North Carolina, yeah. Coal power plant, not for history class either, just for energy. Like, that's the best option we could come up with. So we want them to stop. They haven't stopped. They don't want to stop. So it's either what? I have to change the minds of the university. I have to change the minds of some local politicians who could help me pressure. And the easiest way to do it is just by bribing people. Okay, we know this. You've been doing this work long enough. You've seen so many bribes exchange hands back and forth between companies and regulators. And the companies call it, oh, that's the cost of doing business. And the regulators pretend to look the other way. Please stop me if you think I'm lying. Anybody with some experience, right? Oh my God. No? Okay. So we don't have that money. So what do we have? We have the people. Now I have to do outreach to the good folks of Chapel Hill. to be able to move these people. That's the leverage. I'm creating that leverage. So if I have 3 people with me, I have 3 people's worth of leverage. The politicians will see that as 3 votes either way. That's always the implication, right? Is you bring 100 people to a hearing, they're immediately doing math in their heads. And trust me on this. If somebody's on the city council and you bring 100 people to their office, what they're doing in their head is math. Okay, it's 100 votes and maybe their families, and oh my God, okay, I better listen to these people. If I bring 3 folks and one of them's a scientist from Massachusetts and the other is an organizer from Northern Virginia, as great as those people are, they're not gonna care. Am I making sense so far? So how do we get people? How do we add people to our list? We're always building a list, always be building. And we have to invite them. So we have to reach out to them. And that's why outreach exists. That's why people do phone calls. That's why people send text messages. That's why people knock on doors. That we're inviting people to join us because we are the organizers who are going to create that leverage and create that power in a way that's measurable, that we can count, that we can say, okay, today, Gustavo's committee has 0 people. You know what? If next week my committee has 20 people, that's progress. If the week after it's got 28 people, that's amazing. Because I'm able to count. I know exactly how many people I have with me. So let me pause here and I am going to take a question or 2. And then I'm going to start sharing my screen because I want to show you one of the outreach tools that we are in the process of developing. But I'll go ahead and take any questions about some of that background. And there's a reason I gave that talk at the top, because I wanted to make sure that we were working from the same place and that we're working with the same set of assumptions. Another way to think about what I've been talking about is that our side, like we're always going to be in conflict with our opposition. Their interest is in producing wealth and for themselves and paying the least amount possible. Our interest is that the planet is healthy, that we're able to drink clean water and breathe fresh air. And those 2 interests, unfortunately, are in conflict. That is the natural order of things. So this is always going to be a fight. We need to build up our side while they certainly will be building their side. Jennifer, I see your hand is up. You can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you. My name is Jennifer. I'm calling from the Hudson Valley, New York. We've been growing our community in a lot of involvement. My question or statement or plea is more about addressing how to keep the community engaged. We have multiple environmental threats. We've got PFAS in our drinking water. We have fracked gas plants that are expanding. We have the Hudson River with its PCPs and other things. So how do we maintain the energy and keeping them engaged? Also, our community is one that is ranked rather high as far as poverty and disenfranchisement, and we fight our neighboring municipalities a lot. A lot of the environmental issues that we have more to do with neighboring municipalities voting and having or doing developments that affect our watershed or our air. And so that whole idea of, well, where does the vote count? our vote won't count in the city for a town zoning issue. So just that
Right.
question.
No, that's super important. Actually, I'm going to ask Julia, if you wouldn't mind, can you jot down these questions? Because whatever I can't address today adequately, I want to make a commitment to everybody here that we're going to keep these conversations going, obviously. And so I hear two things. One is that obviously we're all interconnected. So the political boundaries and the pollution boundaries aren't the same. And I totally get that. I'm reminded of two of my sisters in the struggle who were organizing in Alaska, and all of the waste from basically the entire world ends up there. So the other thing, though, that you mentioned is how to keep people motivated and involved in the fight. And that's a huge question. You could spend like 2 days on that. But a short answer is that in my experience, everybody, especially now, just wants to belong. I want to belong to something. I want to be part of something that's bigger. And it's our jobs as organizers to provide a space, a movement home, either an organization, a committee that people want to be part of. And that's one thing. The other thing is that our fights are local. They're not, I mean, they all, of course, like, we all want to win national and global changes, but what we can affect is very, very local. And then putting together all of these local fights creates then the power from the grassroots up to the national and to the global. In my view, if we start with sort of interplanetary goals only, without them being anchored in local work, that can create campaigns that aren't really rooted in anything. Dale is raising his hand. Go ahead, Dale.
I want to let you know that I see Jenny Holmes is on the call now. Thanks, Jenny. I'm glad you got on. I've been participating in Brettel Tuesday's Zoom trainings, and I think Gustavo asked Luce a question or something. I would like to get his point of view based on what you've said so far and how he's using Zoom to do what you just talked about.
Actually, let me, Dale, I appreciate that, but I'm going to be moderating this call.
Oh, okay. Right. I was just trying to help because I thought you said that you were going to call on Zoom, call on Lou. I didn't think you did that. So I'm sorry. Welcome, Jenny. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Other questions? There was somebody else who had their hand raised that I missed. Okay.
Gustavo, it's Francesca. I'm sorry, I'm not on camera, so I don't know if I'm physically supposed to raise my hand, but I don't know how to do it on Zoom. I have a.
Oh, it's okay. You can just unmute yourself and talk.
Thank you. Okay.
It's okay. I'm Latino. This is how we do things too.
I'm Italian, so we interrupt each other all the time around my house. So one of the questions that I have, and this is just a broad question, and I don't know if you can talk about it today, but how do we deal with officials who change the rules? And by officials, I mean the EPA, the Illinois EPA. We are dealing with ethylene oxide, and they have basically discounted the federal way to monitor the air, and we really don't know how to deal with that. So I don't know if you have an answer for that or if you guys have dealt with that, but that would be a subject at some point in the near future I would love to hear about.
Sure. Yeah. Anybody else feel like they're changing the goalposts on us? I'm going to take that as a yes. The the short answer, Francesca, is we get rid of those people, right? I mean, if we have the votes, if we have leverage, if we have the means to do that, obviously always peacefully and non-violently. Let me be clear about that. But we just get rid of them. We have to vote them out. And the reason that goalposts are changed, and really, again, I'm going to sound a little bit reductive, is that when politicians or officials are changing rules, that is generally not in our favor. Okay, so if they change rules midstream, and my friend Ranjana from Arlington, Texas I see is on the call and is very familiar with people changing the rules at the last minute. Oh, you want to frack less than 600 feet from a preschool? Great, let me just open up this loophole here in the legislation and we're gonna make that work for you, right? We just have to get rid of those people. That's just a bottom line. And then when we do the work to mobilize people and to organize people, that is always the implied threat to a local official, is that if we have the ability to mobilize 800 people on a petition or 1,000 people to a workshop, it is always the implication that we can mobilize enough votes to vote them out and to vote one of our people in. That is always what's behind. So when people say, how many people showed up? Were there a lot of people? That's what's behind that. And again, because we don't have the billions that's necessary to move them financially, then we have to move them via the grassroots. So it's a practical consideration. Somebody else had a question. I'm sorry, I don't see your name. Go ahead, man.
That me? Kimmy Way?
Kimmy, yeah.
Hi. So Gustavo, does the idea of like establishing the right of people to have access to the assets of the earth, or to sue for the rights of earth, do those measures have any teeth? Do they have any merit, in the context of establishing protections for the earth?
So that's a great question. I've read some about that. I am not a lawyer, I should tell you. And so I can't tell you like from a legal point of view if that's effective or not effective. What we're talking about here is a little bit before we pass those measures or resolutions. We're talking about creating a good amount of leverage, right? To be able to even get politicians to take that up. I do think that it is promising. However, any piece of legislation, and this goes to the Civil Rights Act, it goes to the Clean Water Act, all of these landmark pieces of legislation are only as good as our collective ability to enforce them. In other words, if we pass a law that then becomes very, very inconvenient to people in power or to people who have an interest in polluting, have a financial interest in polluting our planet and our communities, if we don't have the collective power at the grassroots to be able to uphold and enforce those laws, they are completely worthless. They're just worth the paper that they are written on. Beginning with, honestly, our Constitution. If we don't have the collective power at the grassroots to uphold the United States Constitution, set of laws, worker protections, environmental protections. Those laws might as well not be there. And I'm talking, hopefully I'm provoking some reactions, and I want to always be getting some reactions from you. And I see a whole lot of questions, oh my God, in this chat. All of a sudden, I just looked over here. Julia, pick one.
All right. I've been writing these down too, so if we don't get to all of them.
Yeah, because so Zoom will delete the chat as soon as we get off, and I want to make sure that I save all of these.
Right, yeah, I've saved all of them already.
Thank you so much.
So we can start with the first one from Liz Beal. So when doing hyperlocal organizing online, for example, CFROG focuses on Ventura and Santa Barbara counties in California. One of the issues we run into is targeting and reaching local constituents.
Great. I see that.
Okay.
That is what we're going to be talking about for the last half of this this call. So we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of it. Does anybody have a specific question about the frame that I just put forth? Is that helpful? Is that hopefully I'm just preaching to the choir here. But if I said something that you really disagree with or have a question about, let me know.
Well, I do have questions, right?
Go ahead, Kimmy.
Yeah, I've been a community organizer for over 50 years. Yeah.
Where are you?
I'm in northern New Jersey, and like Patterson, Newark
Great.
area.
That's where all my Brazilian people are.
What's that?
That's where all my Brazilian people are.
Oh, really? Where? In Newark? Newark, right? Like, I just think that there's like a real disconnect between like raising our voices about things that are going to happen and actually making them happen, right? Like, a few miles from me, we had that huge People's Climate March a few years ago, and then what came of that, right? Like today at 4 Eastern time, actually, there's a workshop about the really strong EJ laws that were just passed in the state of New Jersey. As you pointed out, like there's more to be done besides that. That's, I guess, what they're going to talk about in the workshop today, because of course there are going to be legal challenges. But it shifts the burden onto developers of proving that they're not going to create additional like pollution and degradation of people's living conditions when they propose development. But it's still a big disconnect. The NJEJ is very organized organization that was a primary leader in fighting for this. But that's what they do, and they've been doing it a long time. But in terms of like the general public, or organizations that are not that sophisticated, I just think that we don't have a clear path defined, so we don't know what to do, and we don't know where to go. If you it's like a no-brainer. If you start off on a journey and you don't know where you're going, you're never going to get there.
Well, that is very true. So if you start on a journey, you don't know where you're going, you're never going to get there. That's I mean, that, look, I want to invite you to, so everybody hopefully can see the screen that I'm sharing now. I'm going to start getting a little more concrete into this. And one comment that I would have, Kimmy, is that we have to learn to look for victories that are, what's the word I'm looking for? They're interim.
I can't hear you. Gustavo, you're like completely lost.
Hello?
Yeah, I couldn't hear. I don't know if anybody else could hear you.
Okay, it says my internet connection is unstable.
But
So I'm gonna go
cut
ahead.
your video.
Yeah, I'm gonna cut my video because I started sharing my screen, and that could be it. So, Julia, can you let me know if my audio is back and if you can see my screen?
Yeah, of course. Also, I got a message about someone having sent questions to you in a private chat. So if you could send those on to me, that would be great.
Okay, yeah, I'll do that.
Thank you.
So let's talk about, doing outreach during this time. The simplest way I can state it is we're inviting people to a birthday party, right? The birthday party is the movement. And the more people come to this party, the better our ability to protect our communities is going to be. It's the most important party we've ever organized. It's the most important dinner anybody has ever been invited to. But we can't go door to door, right? So what do we have to do? Some of our goals, number one, I want everybody to realize if you're not comfortable going door to door, that is totally reasonable and normal, okay? So let's just get that out of the way right now. If you're uncomfortable going to a mass gathering with hundreds of people that you don't know and be squeezed in tight and screaming and yelling, that is totally reasonable. So no one here is going to question you, and we all share that feeling. So the number one goal is stay safe, and we are doing the responsible thing by not spreading this horrible virus around that's been killing so many people. Number two, we want to be open to learning new skills and new tools. So the principles of organizing are one thing, and whether we choose to apply them in person, on Zoom, with any of these tools, or some other way that hasn't been invented yet, that's fine, but the principles are going to be the same. And you already know so much about this. And now is a time where you have to lean on what you already know. Don't come at this thinking that you're a baby or brand new, because you're not. You wouldn't be on this call if you were. You already have so much experience and so much wisdom that's been gathered from all of the work that you've already done. Now is the time to figure out how to apply that into some new ways and work creatively. Then, of course, we want to increase our activist base, because that's the leverage that we have to make changes. And we want to win some local campaigns. We want to target mayors, city councils. If we can go statewide, let's go statewide. But it's really, the idea is that we apply this very locally, and then we expand from there. So some assumptions that we're making is that email is limited, okay? I don't know how many emails, unread emails, are in your inboxes right now, but it's, it's campaign season. And between that and everybody trying to sell us something, and all the ads that are going on, it's overwhelming. And email has come to the point where its efficacy has been greatly reduced. So you have to send a ton of emails to get one response. And back in 2004 and 2008, people were saying, oh my God, email has worked so well in these campaigns and but it's now fast forward to 2020, and that no longer is working. It's okay, it's part of the toolbox, but it can't be the only tool. Number two, we need to build our local lists. So that is something that CHEJ doesn't do, is we don't build lists for everyone, right? Everybody is sort of, you know, doing, some people have memberships, some people have activists saved in their action networks and nation builders and all of that kind of thing. Other people just have Google Docs, and that's okay, whatever you're using, as long as you're building lists and you're keeping track of that, that's great. Number three is that the public, and I'll change that to from people to the public, public needs to be informed of what's going on. You have been working in this movement for a long time or for a very short time. It should not come as a surprise to anyone here that the things that we know are going on in our communities, the different ways in which we're being poisoned by corporate greed, are not widely known nor widely understood by the public. We talk in jargon all the time, and it is, for example, it was to my great surprise to find out that in the state of Ohio, anybody here from Ohio?
I am.
Oh, well, that's funny, because I have some things to share about the state of Ohio. Just so you know, Ohio has been using radioactive waste from fracking. Instead of disposing of that waste responsibly, take some money, right, to dispose of radioactive waste. You have to package it in a certain way. You have to send it to special places that are equipped to deal with radioactive waste. Some of those facilities are very far away from Ohio. They're down in New Mexico. And instead of doing all that, you know what, the company has decided to, you know, we're going to repackage this as a commercial product called Aqua Salina, and we're going to dump it on Ohio roads as a de-icer, and we're going to sell it at the Home Depot, and we're going to buy off some politicians, and that's what we're going to do. And then we're going to spread radioactive waste from fracking wells all over the public roads in Ohio. Now, nobody knows this is going on. Like, this is outrageous. Okay, so all this crap is getting on people's cars, is getting on the workers' clothes. People are going into restaurants, they're spreading that. They're going into their PTA meetings, they're spreading radioactive crap in the everywhere they go. It doesn't come off. And to add insult to injury, company says, well, you know what? De-icers are really only necessary in wintertime. So what do we do in the summertime? Oh, we're going to package this as a dust control agent for the roads. So it actually gets spread year round. Now, people need to know this stuff. And my assumption, and many people's assumption, is we present this information to people and they're going to be just as outraged as I am. Like, there's nothing special about me that this pisses me off to no end. But I have to present that information in a certain way. Let me take a quick poll on Zoom. Raise your hand in Zoom. And you do this by going to participants. If this is news to you, that Aqua Salina was a product that you could buy at the Home Depot in the state of Ohio. It's not the only state. Yeah, it's news. It was news to me. So the public needs to be informed about these things, and this information needs to be presented in a way that they can understand. Just so you know, I have been organizing for 20 years, but I spent 10 years organizing unions, and I spent another 10 years organizing for immigrant rights. And so I have had to learn a lot of the science behind the poisoning of our communities. So somebody, who was it that was talking about PFAS contamination? So just so you know,
That's me, Dale.
yeah. So, you know, these are all things that if we say PFAS, if we say Superfund, if we say VOCs or ETO, or nobody knows what the hell that is. Remember, like you're talking to your uncle and your cousin at the Thanksgiving table. And if you talk to them like that, you might as well be speaking Chinese or, sorry, another language, right? Because people aren't going to get that. So remember to meet people where they're at. When I say they need to be informed, the public needs to be informed in a way that they can understand. So
Gustavo,
yep.
that wasn't my point. My point is I had a similar example that you had about spreading crap and how to do that. And so I don't know if I want to spend the time giving that example, but there are many examples of industries doing things that people don't know, and you need to talk to the industry and the community in language that everybody understands. I totally agree with you.
Yep. No, definitely. And then the last point I want to make is that it is our job as organizers to speak to people in a way that they are going to be able to understand and internalize. And that is different in different places. You have to know your audience. So a lot of times we think that we have to be very accurate, that we have to be very precise in our language, and that's great. But that is actually not doing us any favors. We have to remember, put yourselves in the shoes of the person you're talking to. As the organizer, that is your job, is to present that information in the correct way. So if you want people to come to your party, then the invitation can't be 10 pages, single spaced, with sentences that run about half the page. You know what I'm talking about, right? With scientific information about how to get there, how to start your car, how to ring a doorbell, etc. Right? That's not how you write an invitation. So we need to inform the public in a way that they can understand. And then 4 is assume that people want to be mobilized. They want to do something. In the example I gave about Ohio, we started texting thousands of people about this. And the response we got was, oh my God, no, I had no idea this is happening. What? This is crazy. And people want to do things to make their communities better. They want to do things to protect their families. They are waiting for you to knock on their door, be it virtually, be it physically. They are waiting for your invitation. Just make sure that if you present that information in a way that they can understand, they will be there. I can't tell you how many times I've heard over many years, I've heard people say, people just don't care about this. They don't want to do anything about it. Well, have you asked? No, I just know. Or, oh, let me see the thing that you're sending out to people to invite them. And it's written to where I need like 3 PhDs to understand. I'm sorry, that ain't gonna work, right? That's not how I talk to my parents around a dinner table. And that is not the kind of language that people are going to respond to. So moving on. What do we do? So one of the main tools we've been using at CHEJ over the last few months in developing is text messages. So we have a text message platform that is totally customizable, that we can send text messages directly to people from a centralized platform given a script. It is highly effective because even if people don't read their emails, they don't read everything that comes in, they do, in my experience, still read every single text message that they get. If you send me a text message, I'm going to read it. Like if you send me an email, I may not read it. That's just the reality of my situation. I don't have a problem admitting it, and I'm sure that I'm not the only one on this call. If you send me a text message, I'm definitely going to read it. I may not respond right away, but number one benefit already, if you send 1,000 text messages, you're going to get 1,000 eyeballs on it. So just like think about it as flyering a community. When we go around physically and drop flyers off announcing a meeting, announcing a situation, or for a campaign, we don't have any guarantee that say we drop off 1,000 flyers, we don't have a guarantee that 1,000 people are going to read them. If you send 1,000 text messages, you're basically guaranteed that 1,000 people are going to read them. So that's benefit number one, and it's highly effective. Number two, it's affordable. So we're talking about 0.5 cents per text message, which actually goes up quickly if we're doing that at scale. But generally, it's more affordable than setting up, making 1,000 photocopies of a flyer and getting volunteers to drop them off. Sometimes if you're nice, you're buying water and pizza for the volunteers. And you should do that kind of thing, by the way. But that costs money. So generally, text messaging is cheaper than doing all of that. And then the setup is fairly quick. So there's some tech that needs to happen on the back end, but generally it doesn't take weeks and weeks to set up a campaign like that. Now, question is, are we ready? Are you ready? If you are considering using outreach via text message as a tactic, it's a tool in a general tool belt. If you say, as Kimmy was talking, if you don't know where you're going, you're never going to get there. Now, if you consider it as part of a broader strategy, just like you would door knocking, you have a clear demand. You have a single primary target. Then you're in good shape. Having a clear demand. I want the University of North Carolina to permanently shut down its coal-fired power plant. I have a single primary target, the one person who can give us this. So is it the university president? Is it the mayor? We just pick one. Our larger strategy is that if we mobilize the people of Chapel Hill and the student body to put enough pressure on our target, we think we can win this. Certainly reasonable. There's no reason on earth why we should be burning coal at this point in time. It's 2020. Great. I feel like we're ready to move on. Pause for questions real quick, and then I'm going to land this ship in the next 10 minutes.
Hi, Gustavo. This is Liz Bell with Seafrog, and I just had a quick question about this.
Hey, Liz.
Hey, I was just wondering, when you're talking about sending text messages, are you talking about sending to existing supporters for which you have their phone number, or is this a strategy where you're farming or getting people's phone numbers for a price?
It's both.
Okay.
It's both, and I'm going to get there in a second.
All right. Thank you.
Yep. So look at that.
One step ahead.
Always, Liz. So you're inviting people to your party. Who are you inviting to that party? You're inviting your friends. You have a list of people already in your phone, in your emails, of people that you know who you want to be there. Okay. So
Hey Gustavo, I think if you're talking, we can't hear right now.
hey, everybody. Sorry, I got disconnected for just a second. I'm back.
Yay.
Oh, thank God. I thought by me dropping off, I think my internet is a little overwhelmed. So, all right. So we have a list. You have a list of existing activists. If you don't, is my audio back on? Yeah. Okay. If you don't have such a list, I would suggest that you create one starting with right now. This is how you are going to measure your strength. This is how you're going to measure your progress. For text messaging, we can combine the list. So all we need is an Excel file with first name, last name, and cell phone. Obviously, it needs to be cell phone for texting. We can also supplement your existing lists, like we're doing in Chapel Hill, for example, with a set of names and numbers that we pull from the voter file. Everybody who registers to vote in the United States gets added to a voter file, and that file is available for rent or purchase by different organizations. And we at CHEJ have access to that through a variety of partners. And we have most states are available to us. From that list, we can say, give me all of the cell phone numbers of people who live in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. We can also say, from all of the people who live in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, I want only the people between the ages of 16 and 75. You can also say, I want only the people who between ages of 16 and 75 who go to church on Sundays, who like to eat turkey and not pork, who are African American, Asian, or Latino, and who were born in the month of November. So in other words, I can filter that list down in a million different ways to get to a population that I want to target. So in other words, I can invite people to
Hey guys, I think we lost Gustavo again, but if he does come back, we can wait for a minute. But in the meantime, if you want to drop any additional questions in the chat, I can copy those. And if you need to head out at 1, I can just relay all of those to him.
Maybe this is an object lesson. This is happening today. It could happen anytime we've got a virtual meeting. And so adapting to the shortcomings of the technology or interruptions in our meetings, whether they're physical meetings or electronic meetings like this one, I think we should fold it into our toolbox and have a plan ready for when stuff like this happens.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Can make a plan ahead of time next time.
And there are people who can't join meetings like this. Many communities that Blue Ridge is working in don't have this kind of access from the get-go. So we're resorting to telephone conference calls, which I think could still use some of the ideas that Gustavo is so good at with the text banking. And his example of Chapel Hill, I think it was quite well placed.
One thing I wonder about is that since we're waiting for him, the energy, there's an energy that gets created when you're physically together. And how can you recreate that when you're doing a phone conference or when you're doing a texting, a textathon, or how do you know, that energy is kind of what binds us together, gets people excited. I don't know if people have ideas on that.
Say it again, Laurie. I'm sorry. I missed the question.
When you're doing those phone conferences, because I've also got community members that don't have access to computers and stuff like that. How do you recreate that energy that we usually have when we're together physically so that people are getting just as excited and involved?
Excellent question. One thing that I've found is that virtual meetings like this typically follow the form of physical meetings, and you have an agenda. You talk about topic A, B, C, D, E. You hear from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, ever how many people. One of the things that I was thinking about when Gustavo was outlining some of the techniques is sometimes we have a meeting which has no agenda on Zoom or Skype or whatever. And typically that would be a disaster if you had a room full of people, or at least in terms of getting something done. But I'm kind of intrigued at the kind of vitality that you mentioned, Laurie, which I think is exactly part of the problem with electronic organizing and distance learning and whatnot, is it seems to have its own kind of vitality. People are telling jokes, for example, or saying a prayer to open the meeting or close the meeting, or without an agenda, which I'm not necessarily recommending this, but I'm just kind of reflecting on some experience that was a surprise to me, because we started something and it kind of it morphed into something else because we let it happen.
That's a great idea. That, I mean, they wouldn't hurt to experiment with that. And
Yeah,
make sure that those things are included, like jokes, or, you know, include that human element in that room for fun and flexibility. And I guess one-on-one conversations, maybe the breakout rooms that Zoom can do. That's all Zoom. I don't know how you do it on a phone, but that might be another thing.
I don't know if I may say something. Last time in one of our Zoom meetings, we started by having a glass of wine and we all tossed it, you know, and that kind of broke the ice. And we all like, yeah, let's cheer for this meeting today. And we had our cups, you know, you can have juice or whatever you wanted. And we tossed, and that really broke the, you know, when you start a meeting and it's kind of like dull. So we kind of laugh about it, and it was very happy. So little things like that might make a difference.
Yeah, I think those are great points. We definitely need to find better ways to garner enthusiasm and a sense of community. Yeah. And so, yeah, thank you guys all so much for coming. I've taken all of these notes down, and I know somebody else was taking notes in addition to the questions. So I'll touch base with Gustavo, and he'll get back to all of you about those individual questions. And I think meeting again. Yeah.
Hi, it's Francesca. I wanted to grab you before you signed off. I was really getting into what Gustavo was talking about with this master list and how to use it. The one key thing he mentioned is that CHEJ has access to the voter lists for most states. How do we tap into that?
I will ask him about that right after this.
That would be a good way, because I would love to learn this process. So
yeah.
Again, if he wanted to just do this, not on a live Zoom call and send out a link, I would totally watch it. I don't know if anybody else would.
Yeah, I saw that comment in the chat and I noted that down to ask him about.
Okay.
I would totally listen. Maybe he can send his presentation, or maybe we can reschedule again and finish the chat. I mean, I'm up for that too. I don't know how much longer he had to finish it, but maybe he can just send his presentation. And if we had any questions or whatever left he had to say, then we just send it to him. I don't know, he sent his email address here. He said he was gonna post it, but you know where his address is?
Yeah, I know he's going to share the presentation with everyone. And I'll ask him about potential future meetings or making a recording or something and see what he's up for. And yeah, his email is now in the chat. So if anybody needs to note that doesn't have it yet.
Step by step, the longest march can be won, can be won. Many stones can form an arch, singly none, singly none. And by union what we will can be accomplished still. Drops of water turn the mill, singly none, singly none.
Hey everybody, so Comcast just went down and my whole entire block. So there we go. Oh, lovely. So I am I'm connected via cell phone. I can't apologize enough. This is actually, it's pretty ironic when you think about what the topic of today's conversation is. So I do want to respect people's time, but before I close, I want to come back to just be able to wrap this up here and talk about what we're doing. And I'd like to follow up. And I think there's been a lot of interest here in this session. So I want to make sure that we get some time one-on-one to do this. As I was saying, the master list that we used to get people's names and numbers already exists, and that we filter that down from the voter file and we tailor that to individual campaigns. From there, we create scripts where we are outreaching to folks on specific issues. Those scripts are rooted in organizing principles, meaning that we are communicating to people and trying to meet them where they are. And volunteers log on and send out those text messages. As soon as we start getting replies, we engage with folks and we ask further questions and we look to agitate. And from there, we ask people to take one action, be it to sign a petition, come to a meeting. We look for agreement, and we build our leverage. Volunteers can be trained in no more than 15 minutes to do it. The text messages initially can go out to thousands of people. And the next steps is really to figure out if you have a campaign that's ready in terms of the strategy, in terms of a demand, in terms of a target. We'd be more than happy to work with you on next steps and follow up. We've done this in about 15 different places already. And it's been very, very successful. We're looking at setting up in new states. And if you have a viable campaign, if you think you want to be part of this and work with me and Julia and Shayna and the team at CHEJ, we'd be more than happy to help you get set up. I see it, so it's been a learning experience for me to figure out how to work the technology of it, the background, but also how to apply the organizing principles to everything we've done. So I see it as my job to pass that on to as many people as I can, because we need to disseminate the knowledge and tools and skills as far and wide as we can. So again, apologies for the tech stuff. It's nothing we cannot overcome. And here we are. So we've sent text messages to about 300,000 people so far, just in the last couple of months. And that's a huge number, and a huge number of people have been part of it. So I'm happy to share this with you. The next steps beyond just sending text messages and asking people to sign a petition would be to hook up a tool called Phone to Action, where we're texting people and connecting them directly to their representatives over the phone. So we can do that as well. And the way that that's more helpful than just call your congressman, call your senator about this, is that we can actually track each person who makes that call and we can coach them through it. So it's a better tool in that way. So hopefully there's going to be a lot of birthday parties getting organized out there. There's going to be lots of membership drives. There's going to be lots of petition drives. There's going to be lots of activity. Remember that the status quo does not benefit us. The status quo is benefiting the polluters. And next time we get together, we will follow up, and we're going to talk more specifically about the messaging and how to craft that message. But I hope I gave you a good enough overview of the context and the tool that you're able to start thinking about, or hopefully maybe you have some follow-up questions. I'm happy to stay on for another 15 minutes and take some questions if that's okay. If you have to go, please feel free to log off. But I am here and available, and unfortunately I'm on my cell phone. So Julia, if you can help me in the chat, or if people just want to unmute themselves and ask a question or make a comment, I'll be happy to address those.
Gustavo, it's Francesca. I'm so excited by what you started to present. I'm sorry this happened to you, of course. It always happens, right? Like you get right to the good part and then everything crashes. So
oh, it's okay.
So how do we, I guess to me, my question is, it sounds like having a good invitation is key. And
Yeah.
you mentioned that you might be able to provide us with some examples. I don't know if there's any example that you can at some point show us so that it gets our creative juices flowing. And I sometimes need someone to hold my hand to get me started, and then I'm able to take off after that. So I don't know if others are the same way.
Yep. So the initial text message, right, in this case is the invitation. It's sort of like the top paragraph on the flyer is the opening paragraph when you're at the door, right? Think of it that way. And what we've learned, so I'll share some actual experience from a campaign in Alabama where we're trying to get a site added to the Superfund National Priorities List. Now, everybody on this call knows what Superfund is, what National Priorities List means. And so we drafted this initial text message, and it said, "Hi, this is such and such, and I'm volunteering with GASP, who is our partner in Alabama. We have, I'm paraphrasing here, but we have an urgent situation where we need the 35th Avenue Birmingham site added to the national priorities list. Will you send a message to Governor Ivey and ask her to do this?" Right? We started sending that text message. This was very early on. And we're getting no responses, right? Or very few anyway, compared to some other campaigns that we run in different states. So looking at the numbers, so we said, okay, so we got the numbers, and it was the response rate was very small. We're wondering why. Is it something about Alabama, right? That it makes it incredibly difficult to organize there. Now, that's certainly part of it, but that's not the whole story. Is it the people that we were sending this to? Are we sending it to too many quote unquote haters in Alabama and not enough to our people? That might have been part of it, but that wasn't the whole story. The whole story includes the fact that nobody knows what Superfund is outside of the people in this meeting. So do not assume. I know you think that everybody knows these words, but they don't. So, I'm taking this very concrete example to illustrate the point that National Priorities List, Superfund, all these words need not be in your opening paragraph. PFAS, VOCs, ETO, give me all those acronyms. Lou, you're shaking your head. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You try going down to the country store, and as you're paying for your Snickers and your gasoline, you start talking to the people there about ETO and VOCs and things becoming airborne and blah, blah, blah. And what are they going to do? They're going to nod politely, and they're going to give you your change, and okay, goodbye, crazy person, right? That's what's going to happen. So we changed the script to something that was a lot more human, that was rooted in public health and not science. This is a key point that is rooted in the human effect. So people are dying of cancer in Birmingham from pollution that is preventable. COVID makes it worse. So we drafted a different message. And because of our ability to track numbers, we realized that that message was 6 times more effective than the message about Superfund and NPL and all of that. Same campaign, same target, same group. So I will absolutely spend more time on that in a future workshop, or we can take, I can show you examples and we can even troubleshoot some of yours. But
Okay.
number one is root things in public health. How is this affecting my body? How is this affecting my child? How is this affecting my parents? How is this going to affect my long-term health and the health of my community? That is what matters. If the stuff that's in the air is giving me asthma, if it stinks, if it gives you cancer, it's okay. Like, we don't have to say, it has been shown to cause cancer in lab rats in San Francisco. And so that's not right. We don't have to qualify our statements like that. We say this crap gives you cancer. Like, I don't need a PhD to know that radioactive waste from a fracking well is not something I want on my hands while I'm eating a sandwich. And that's what's going on. If I stop at the side of the road in Ohio to change a tire, I don't want to die because of that, because some company wanted to save a few pennies. Instead of sending their waste down to New Mexico, they wanted to spread it on my roads.
So then would you say that in that initial script that you don't even, so for example, our issue is ETO, and we could say people are in, let's say Gurney, are dying from cancerous air.
What the hell is ETO?
Right. So what I'm saying is, you're saying don't even say it in that first like text message you send out. Like,
Right.
do you ever introduce it? Like, or at what point do you introduce it?
Well, how does the ETO affect our health?
Is that what you're asking me to explain, or is that the question?
Yeah, I mean, it's a rhetorical question, right? But that's how does the X affect me? Like, what is my, like, think of me as a member of the public. How is this affecting my body and my kids and my parents? Like, I don't really care what it is. I might start caring after I come to a couple meetings, right? Or after we've had a few conversations, but initially, no. I know cancer, I know asthma, I know things like anxiety. I know about long-term mental health problems. I know about birth defects. I know about these things, but I don't know about ETO.
Okay.
Or PFAS. Right? Like, this stuff is gross. What they're doing to us is gross. Like, can we not lose sight of that and really be talking about that as a top line message?
Okay. Yeah, I think where I get a little derailed is not knowing how much to include, if we decide to do this. So that's where I think I could really benefit from your expertise is, how far to go with how many texts. But I'm very interested.
We can talk offline, Francesca, and you can tell me a little more about, your particular campaign, and I'm happy to help.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, but hopefully that makes sense to everybody who's been doing this a little longer. Is that, I, as a member of the public, I need you to reach out to me thinking about what my self-interest is. If everybody acted on their own self-interest, we wouldn't be where we are. Like, I am not a stockholder of Aqua Salina Corporation. I don't have royalty payments coming into me from fracking wells, right? So why would I possibly defend the company? No, I want to defend my family against getting cancer and being sick. That's my interest, right? Is just to get by as safely as I can. Support my family, make it through the holidays, have a country that I want to live in, breathe clean air, drink fresh water.
Gustavo, the workshops that CHEJ has done that provided long-lasting as well as immediate help to some of our campaigns were on messaging. And I don't know how you haven't mentioned messaging as such with text banking, but we utilize that kind of thinking to put radio ads together, 30-second radio spots, and using the word poison if there was a pollution in the atmosphere, rather than even the word pollution. Poison, people understand. Yes. If pressed to pull a chemical compound which is harmful out of a list of known chemicals coming from a particular industrial facility, you would pick one that everyone knows about, like arsenic, maybe. I mean, who doesn't know that arsenic is bad news? Maybe it wasn't the most harmful substance coming out of that smokestack, but everybody knew what you're talking about.
Absolutely. And that's so on messaging, I think we can dig in on that exclusively, right, in a further workshop. But there is the general health that is number one in my book. But there's also sometimes some people get engaged by saying, you know what, the process is unfair. So for example, in Arlington, Texas, there's the company was essentially bypassing the city council and not going through the hearings, and people really care about that kind of thing, or some people really care about that kind of thing, that the process, that the law wasn't followed. Likewise, a landfill in Southern California that we're working on, they've been cited, they have something like 509 citations from LA County for violations of different kinds. Like, people really care about that. There's a lot of stories about public corruption and officials. And so the message can be supplemented with all of these other arguments, but I do think that the public health and the health of my kids and my parents and my wife and myself come first if I'm Joe Public. And if you can explain that to me very directly and very simply, I am much more likely to react to you. In other words, the pipeline company is dirty and they want to do all of this, and they're bypassing all kinds of laws and regulations, and they're going to ruin the streams. But the thing can also just blow up and set my house on fire. How about that? Right? So that is, we have to weigh all of those arguments and present the most direct and concrete one first.
Yeah, there are procedural things too that might be overlooked. For example, we've got an issue in South Carolina and Florence County, and we tried to get on the county council's agenda to make public comment. Well, the county council does not have even a 3-minute open comment period. So everybody was kind of demoralized at first, but then we said, wait a minute, let's use that for the message. Florence County Council doesn't want to hear from you about this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now you've got people's attention. And you haven't even started talking about pollution yet, or what the issue is.
Yeah, and you know what? If something feels like it's rigged, I immediately don't like it.
Yeah, exactly. And we're all on the boat with that one.
Yeah, that's right. Other questions or comments? And again, I can't see the chat, so I will rely on on Julia to save everything that's there so that we can follow up offline. And this has been great. And I just want to thank everybody for joining and being patient and hanging out a little bit over time. I'm very, very passionate about organizing, and I am excited that to come to this point because the quarantine is not stopping us in any way. There is nothing that we can overcome, and we take challenge. And part of the organizing skill is taking that challenge and turning that into an opportunity. So I think even after we're done quarantining, if we can learn to do, you know, some new things in the meantime, it's gonna be useful in the future, no matter what. Like, this isn't gonna just go away because all of a sudden the quarantine's gonna be over. Other questions? Julia, is there anything that we should address before we go? So we're coming in for the landing here.
I don't think so. I've got down the questions that maybe weren't answered earlier. I'm not sure everyone's not still on the call, but I got everything down, and names and stuff. So, and everyone's
great.
Now, so.
Beautiful. So if you could, Julia, you could drop my email address and yours and Shayna's in the chat so that everybody has it. It's G Andrade, like my last name, at CHEJ.org. I'm happy to hear from you. And, you know, once again, thank you. We're going to, next workshop we do, we're going to do it with Lois Gibbs, and it's going to be on messaging specifically. So Lou, we're going to spend the whole hour talking about that. The reason I didn't want to go deep on the technology today is that this really isn't about technology. You know, like if we're talking about sending out flyers, I'm not going to spend an hour talking about the Xerox machine's inner workings, right? You just stick the paper in there, you press copy, you go out and you hand out your flyers. You don't need to know what kind of toner and what kind of laser beam it's emitting. Just like with text messaging, just let's not make it more complicated than it needs to be. And I just really want to say that you all already know more than enough, and your experience is it's like a treasure, right? We've been able to do incredible things so far. So I'm really looking forward to see what else we can do together. So thanks everyone. We're gonna close it here, and let's keep the conversation going. Thank you so much.
Thank you.